this week has been lots of commencement speeches, right? And we talked about Jensen Huang last week as well, and we'll talk about it. What's happening actually? Whenever in some of the places when you talk about AI, you actually get boos, not cheers. So
yeah, that one hit home. Like I said, I've got a son that just graduated, so we'll definitely get into that topic. So in other news, Trump rolled back some AI safety on the executive order, which is opening up the door for other things, which we'll talk about. And speaking of other things, OpenAI released a personal finance, I'll call it capability inside of ChatGPT.
yeah, and some people movement. You and I were still at the same place, but Andre Karpathy joined that Anthropic, Musk lose a lawsuit, and some spicy stuff that we will also cover um, in the world of AI.
Yeah, and it's never a dull moment with chips and frontier firms. So new relationships forged, and Anthropic is in talks to rent the Mia, however you pronounce it. I still got to learn that one. The AI chips from Microsoft. I should know that since I work for Microsoft as well.
I think I will take a guess. I think it's Maya. That's what I remember hearing it, but I'm also confused. Google I/O goes all in on agents. Who is not, by the way? Of course, Google is supposedly going all in on agent AI and everything. But then also Spotify. Spotify I feel now is more of an AI company than the content company. We'll talk about lots of new features that they're adding, personal podcasts and remixes and all those things powered by AI.
And to wrap it up at the end, I'll talk about something like to maybe as we talk about a new segment, which is how do we personally use AI. So I'll talk about something called Workshop Buddy, which I created this past week.
That is very important, for people who keep asking, okay, how do I actually elevate my level of work at, basically by using AI. And this new segment that we have launched is going to be amazing. Jamie will show what he's doing. I'll show sometimes, so we will give examples, real examples and demos occasionally of what you can do at work, not just Copilot or ChatGPT, but way beyond it. That and more. Stay tuned for a quick introduction. Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilico, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
Okay, so let's talk about the thought of the week, which is basically what's going on with the AI public. People are now more cheering about AI, and some of the people are actually booing the commencement speakers. For example, Gloria Caulfield, she's a real estate firm executive, and she was giving a speech at the University of Central Florida. And she was talking about, the time that we're living. They are time of profound change, which can be both exciting and daunting, of course. And then rise of AI is the next industrial revolution. And she started getting a lot of booing, and basically it was getting louder and louder. And she said, "Okay, what did happen, right? I mean, looks like I struck a chord." And that is true. I mean, she did struck a chord, because that's what is happening. Like, more and more people that you talk to, and you will hear the same thing, that there is now more of fear and kind of anxiety rather than the excitement. Because right now, for example, if you talk about some of the latest poll, like Gallup poll, 73% of people in 2024 were excited about AI, and now people are only about 43% are excitedly looking to it, and more people are anxious about what's going to happen. So, not a good thing. I think our industry leaders, the AI leaders, need to calm down. Okay, don't talk about these automation and job losses, and I will replace everybody. That kind of thing. Look, that's not happening. All your prediction. That's what Dario Amore, right? I mean, CEO of Anthropic, he said that almost 18 months ago that all the coding will be done within 18 months by AI. Well, we still have people employed as software engineer. And I would say that probably, I don't think that it's like the entire software engineering population. There have been a lot of layoffs, but I don't think it has completely gone down. There have been a lot of hirings as well. So, don't go by all these things. These statements are meant for something else. By the way, not to forget this, but Eric Schmidt, the previous Google CEO, he also was actually at one of the campus, and he was talking about same thing, like, okay, AI, and he was saying that you will help shape artificial intelligence. Again, he also got booed by a lot of people. So, there's is people need to be a little bit careful when they say something, what they say. You need to assess. Although it's hard, like Jensen Huang, he was cheered all around. He was not, but he was at the place which is known as a kind of a birthplace of AI, right?
So,
Khan.
so I have an interesting take on this one because I'm living it. I've mentioned a couple times in the last couple episodes. I have a son who just graduated college, and he graduated with a degree in information technology. So what I see from him, and again, he's on job interviews now. He's gone through um, several different stages, got to finals on some jobs. He's even lucky that he's been able to get jobs. The things that he's told me, as far as putting through resumes and automatically getting turned down by AI bots because they respond quickly. I think this is what's rising to the top with the kids at school. Now you got to remember what we're talking about here. There were these two commencement speeches, and I guarantee you there's more that just haven't hit the news yet. But they're getting boos from college kids that are graduating. Why are they booing? Well, I think it comes down to a couple things. One, and put it in the context of this, like the two people, Gloria and Schmidt.
Correct.
Yeah, they're talking about AI. Claudia, at least, she said, this is a profound change and things that are changing as far as an industrial revolution. And Schmidt said, he gave sort of like dystopian view of what's changed ever since like 1982 and the rise of computers and how business, how intelligence through AI is changing. So that's landing on the laps of these kids who are graduating. And you got to think about, they just spent 4 years in university. Think about what they're all what, most of them are 21, 22. They started their college career in 2022. That's right around the time when ChatGPT came into its own, like when 3.1 hit and ChatGPT itself. So they've been living with the use of these tools since they started. You look at what most schools are doing. I can't speak to every school, but I've spoken to a bunch of quote unquote college age kids through my son, who's got friends in obviously a lot of different schools. Most schools do not let their students use AI. As crazy as that sounds, they do not. Most teachers, most professors look down on the use of AI. And what do they tell the students? That it's bad, it's cheating, can't use it. So it's almost like the schools are ingraining into the students that AI is bad. So if people are coming up and talking about commencement speeches on AI is the next revolution or industrial revolution, what is the natural reaction of these students? It's going to be, boo, it's bad. We were told that AI is bad. We can't use it. I personally know some kids that got F's on papers because they used ChatGPT to help them draft it, and professors just knocked it down. So, what is their natural reaction? It's going to be that. Couple that with the fact that, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, there are definitely less jobs for college kids right now. At least it's going to be harder for them to get jobs because of reductions in force. And we've talked about this over and over again. So you couple the fact that professors are saying AI is bad with the job prospects of people now. Like if you went into school 4 years ago for journalism, I guarantee you it's going to be harder for people to get a journalistic job than it was 4 years ago. So those two things combined, that's kind of making this groundswell of college age kids that are coming out into the workforce booing because they're being told it's bad and there's not enough jobs. I look at that as what's the repercussions that that's going to have. I think it could be profound. We're seeing this, and sorry, I'm going to go off on another rant here. We're seeing things where you have outside forces on, like, what's the sentiment of doing AI and data centers, as an example. That's starting to create a chatter and a causing people to have a reaction in them that says AI is bad. I don't want data centers. In some respect, I think that's also a groundswell into schools. Make no mistake about it. Universities are think tanks into the way that people think, but also the way that they're shaped going into the future. So you have all these concepts or ideas being fed into our kids where I'm not surprised they're getting boost, to be honest with you, from people that are coming up in their commencement speeches talking about AI. So that being said, I will say this: the kids that are booing, AI, if they try to go to get a job and say AI is bad, I wouldn't hire them. That is like the next paradigm in the way that you have to shift. I mean, look at us inside of Microsoft. We're encouraged to do AI. If we had some new, if we had a graduate just coming in and saying, "Oh yeah, AI is bad. I would never want to use it," they would not get hired inside of Microsoft. So it's almost like it's a disservice to the college kids coming out because they're not thinking about what's happening in the real world. All right. So I said my thoughts. Like I said, it's a hot topic in this household. And I think people need to wake up and actually realize more or less what's number one, what's going on, what's the sentiment, and based on reality, because there's no way we're going to stop AI and where we're going. It's about how you adapt to it. I bet you were waiting on that button the whole time.
Jamie, I just wanted to make you feel how it is, how unsettling it is for the speaker to hear boost.
That was awesome.
But yeah, no, I agree with you, Jamie, that I think, you're right. I mean, there's some sort of a radicalization going on in the schools against the AI. Interestingly, my daughter, she goes to Rutgers and she's doing the business there. And she's told me that they actually have some exams which are declared at OpenAI, basically. Not like OpenAI, the company, but basically you can use AI tools and do all kind of thing. And I think it's more like experimental. And the students are doing that, and they say that they actually finish those exams very quickly because, of course, you can use OpenAI AI openly, and like experiment kind of
yeah,
thing.
I think that's great because it actually is the real world. I mean, every day, whenever I'm doing something, I always do quote unquote a co-pilot search to either validate or verify or like how can I think about this differently. And I think that's awesome. And by the way, I'll do another little anecdotal piece for our work. Or at least the role that I'm in, I have to take certification exams to kind of like re-up on the things that we do. So I literally just took an exam last week for some things inside of Fabric. Yes, I do AI, but I also do data and data services. So when I was in taking that exam, I noticed that there was use the Microsoft Learn, which I never saw before, by the way. And I have to take exams periodically. Took one, whatever it was, like 6 months ago. It brings you into the Microsoft Learn, which I thought was cool in and of itself, and that might have been there for a while. But you could actually search against the Microsoft Learn, and it brings up. It's not exactly Copilot, but it's actually doing AI summary inside of that. So I was able to validate some of the things I was looking at in the exam to ensure that I was on the right path. And yes, I did change two of my answers based on what I saw from that. So even in Microsoft certification exams, there's some level of AI to help the person taking the exam. So again, I go back to schools really need to wake up. So I'm glad to hear Rutgers, who, by the way, that's where I went to school, is changing some of their practices. So anyway, I think we spent enough on our opener. So I'll do a hard transition here, totally into a different aspect. So we've been talking about the executive orders here in the United States. So there was a executive order that was putting additional pressure or focus on these frontier firms that would have required them to actually have volunteer pre-release frameworks for their advanced models. So that was actually put on hold. And that was really done for pressure that was put not only by Elon Musk, but Zuckerberg as well, who kind of got into the administration's ear that could actually slow down the innovation here within the US and could give an edge to our potential adversaries, whether or not that's China or whoever you want to fill in the blank. So, this would have encouraged certainly developers to coordinate their efforts with the government before launching these frontier models. And the thought was that the government then would be able to look at these to strengthen cybersecurity across various different critical sectors within our economy and government. So, that loosened that up. That actually also allowed some interesting side effects, which is the government then moving forward with working with other frontier firms other than Anthropic. And again, this has been in the news quite a lot, but Anthropic is working with our government, especially through Palantir. But with this pullback, it actually also enabled some of the existing companies to work more directly with the current administration. So bottom line, things are delayed at least, if not postponed indefinitely on that.
Okay, let's talk about Spotify releasing a bunch of AI features. So I think after this a lot of releases. I feel that Spotify is more of an AI company than a content company because they release a tons of features. They're doing a real hard pivot towards the AI. Um, of course, they remain a content company, but it's so much AI powered now. For example, they have released something called a personal podcast feature, which uses AI to generate podcasts for users based on an idea or a custom prompt. Not a big deal. You can do that with the, what is that, Notebook ML and things like that. And even a Copilot can do that. But now that is within the Spotify. And then basically users can make a request like share my daily city updates or tell me about local concerts from the artists I love or help me understand economics in 5 minutes, things like that. And you basically create a personal podcast. You can save that to the library and consume it basically. Users can also actually add links, PDFs, and text, and choose a custom voice to generate those podcasts. So tons of basically AI features. Spotify is also partnering with the AI voice company 11 Labs to release a tool that lets authors narrate audiobooks using AI voices. That's another feature. And then just this week, they also actually dropped in a new agreement with the Universal Music Group, UNG, and basically it allows the people, the users and the audience to create covers and remixes of songs by, of course, the participating and consenting artists and songwriters. So whoever already agreed to that, you can use their content and remix with this with your own stuff. I think I like that feature. Of course, assuming that it is done properly with compliance, which is what it's supposed to be, because it can also help artists generate some and I can think of some scenario where maybe some songs are not as popular, for example, and artists are anyway not getting any revenue, but maybe somebody is experimental musician and they can do some remixing with that and maybe that becomes popular. And we know many examples that happens. Some of the old songs are being taken and remixed and they become very popular actually. So I think it's a good platform. They will also allow something called a studio, etc., a kind of a feature where you can do these kind of things. So some exciting new features in Spotify using AI.
Yeah, I'd be curious on checking that out because I'm a subscriber to Spotify, and I kind of related to what at the last lab that I did. I've been creating podcasts based on weather white papers or like um, really deep mathematical equation kind of stuff, and then turning that into a little bit more usable white paper. Usable podcast. So I'd be curious to see how well that podcast from Spotify turns out as compared to how I'm doing it right now, which is a mix of Notebook LM and also the Microsoft Copilot capability. So that's interesting. So I'll give it a try.
Yeah, and so let's move it to rapid news, or I like to call it gossip section. Or except that they are not really gossip; they're two things, but they're spicy stuff. Like OpenAI co-founder Andre Karpathy joins Anthropic's pre-training team, and Andre Karpathy is like a stalwart. He's famous for coining the term like vibe coding, or like his famous tweet, which I've used a lot in my presentation, is that English is the hottest new programming language when ChatGPT was launched. So yeah, he's a dude, man, and he's joined the Anthropic's pre-training team. Basically, he will be looking at ways in which you can use the AI itself to research in AI, right? So that kind of thing. Because the loop there. In the other news, Elon Musk has lost his lawsuit against Sam Altman and OpenAI. Basically, juries said that yeah, there's no merit in it, and all key claims are blocked by the statute of limitations because 3 years time, which supposedly the statute of limitations have already passed. He could have claimed these things within that period. So that's the ground of this dismissal. Of course, Sam Altman, in his characteristic style, said that I'm going to appeal this. So yeah, this will go on forever probably, but I think that's a good news for OpenAI because they are planning to actually go public, right, within a few months, and putting this lawsuit aside actually relieves those. And I think as soon as this happened, they basically the news started coming out that they will be going as early as maybe September and going public with it.
No, that's close. I think it's going to be a race to see who gets there first between Anthropic and OpenAI. I also heard I think SpaceX is going public too. Anyway, speaking of finance, that's a great segue into that. So OpenAI did launch a personal finance inside of ChatGPT. It's only for the pro tier, at least for now, but it allows you to connect into your bank account. So the idea is that it's actually going to stream that data again under a secure channel. But it'll allow users to basically look at things like their unified spending, create dashboards, ask context-aware questions. based upon like their own money. Like you'd be like, hey, how much did I spend on Starbucks this past month? So I know my son goes there a lot. He might be shocked to see how much he spends. But those are things, and it would be directly tied into the ChatGPT 5.5 reasoning model. And again, like I said, it could analyze the real financial data that can then provide personalized insights. It could do budgeting advice, being able to do spending breakdowns, and even do like scenario planning. Like if I want to do this, what's the potential impact? So leverages that data and leverages the power of the model. Obviously, there would be tight controls on this because you want your financial data either being linked out to other parties, or do you want bots just automatically taking money out of your account, which would not be good. So there's certainly tight controls over that. But like I said, it is only on the pro tier, at least for now. One other quick rapid fire news: Anthropic, as I mentioned in the teaser, is in talks with Microsoft for the in-house AI chips, Maia, whatever it is. And those chips are based upon TSMC's 3 nanometer processes, and it's just jam-packed with SRAM for fast performance on the inferencing. So this deal's not finalized yet, but ultimately this really it fosters a new thinking out in the market for companies that need and or are hungry for additional processing power. You don't have to just wait on NVIDIA. So this demand is just skyrocketing for companies outside of NVIDIA. We talked about Google, whatever it was, 2 episodes, and what they could provide as far as their chipsets. Now Microsoft. So this is something that's in demand because the supply is so tight and prices are kind of really high for the NVIDIA hardware.
Yeah, I see what you did there, Jimmy. I do this trick as well. Tell all possible pronunciations, so at least one of them is right. Mia, Maya, etc. Yes, I do that when I'm not sure. Anyway, moving on. Google I/O event was this week, and Sundar Pichai was very happy about lots of announcements that they made. Starting with Gemini 3.5 Flash has been launched and it's their faster default model for Gemini and AI mode in search, with a stronger reasoning, coding, and agent-style task handling. So, and basically this model is pretty good. Actually, it's the fastest. Flash doesn't mean that it's cheap, like in the sense that it's not like anything low. It's pretty good. Frontier intelligence model. It outperformed Gemini 3.1 Pro on coding and agentic benchmarks. So it's not just a dumbed down version. It's just fast and a little bit cheaper in executing. But it's pretty good in coding, and it's 3.1 series of Gemini was really groundbreaking, right? But it's as good as that. It is designed for long horizon agentic tasks. It completes the multi-day workflows in hours and at lower cost. And stay tuned. Gemini 3.5 Pro is arriving next month. It's already in the internal use.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in, that and the part that you're going to talk about next. But yeah, I'd like to see how Pro lands and how it compares to 5.5, especially the 5.5 Pro high thinking, and also 4.7 Opus. So I know Gemini was really good when they released 3. I expect it to be pretty high in the arena leaderboards when it gets released. So I'll maybe jump in there because I kind of I talked a little bit about it, but this is all coming from I/O. So Google literally announced like a truckload of stuff that's either coming or near term or just released. So one of the big headlines was something called Gemini Omni. So their tagline is create anything from any input. This is sort of like the panacea of where everybody was trying to go. And I will say Google has been in the forefront for being able to give any input. Like I use it to generate, and again, here's a little pro tip, to generate our show notes, or sorry, not the show notes, but the descriptions going into YouTube. I throw the video into Gemini to then generate the description that I'll use inside of YouTube. So, Google's been on the forefront for any input, but the other side of it is create any output from a single model. So this is a new multimodal model, both in and out. So it's going to be able to generate not only the things that we know and love as far as like text and code and everything else, but it's also going to be able to generate video, which is physics aware. So, we think about what Google's able to do on the video today through VO. This is just going to take it to the next round. So it's not exactly out yet. It's rolling out across the Gemini app flow, as well as then various different YouTube creations. So this is definitely one for sure, since I still have my Gemini subscription, I will be trying this out. Eager to get my hands on this one for sure.
Okay. AI native search, AI mode. By the way, AI mode is pretty good actually. It's so convenient, right? Because we are such a the creature of habits that it's hard. Sometimes I feel that when I have to search for something, honestly, I know that ChatGPT will give me a better answer, right? Or Copilot will give me a better answer the way I want it. But I'm such a creature of habit that I still end up going to, Chrome or Bing, right? And just old habit, right? Because is it's still, like I would say, let's say muscle memory, whatever. But I think with Chrome and Google providing this AI mode, actually it doesn't feel too much different now, right? Because it's easy. When you make a search query, you still get it like an AI version, just like how the ChatGPT will give me. So it doesn't feel too different. So I think they're closing that gap and still using that muscle memory of people to go to the search engine, but getting a different experience. So it introduced it's basically, it now surpassed it. They talked about that AI mode now surpassed 1 billion monthly users, and it switches to Gemini 3.5 Flash globally as the default model that we talked about. It also talked about that basically the queries now across text, image, file, videos, and Chrome tabs simultaneously. So that's the biggest search box upgrade in 25 years that they have made.
Hmm.
Lots of good stuff on the search part as well.
Yeah, and like you said, there's more things as it relates to the personal side for people using Google. Yeah, there's a lot that happens through Chrome, quote unquote, the browser. So other than search, there's anti-gravity in search. So you could build custom generative UIs directly now through your search. So that will drive interactive visuals, tables, simulations. So users are soon also going to be able to build little mini apps that are directly inside the search for ongoing tasks, such as like planning and tracking projects. So this is sort of marrying the concepts of what we used to do just in plain old search, now where AI itself is able to not only generate better search results by ingesting all the data, but actually creating little mini apps that are built by AI inside the search. So it's sort of like everything kind of coming together. The other thing too, like from a personal experience, there's this notion of that like personal intelligence and a universal cart. So this is yet again another AI mode that will be expanding out to many different countries over the time. But this is a app connected experience for the customer. That'll expose it through Gmail, through photos, through calendar. So the universal cart literally is something that can track these price drops, can detect product incompatibilities for the things that you're looking for. And it can also even tell you like, hey, this is the best way of actually paying for this thing that you just bought. So again, this is dropping in all of these personal consumer things directly into the tools that Google users will be accustomed to.
Okay.
And I'll go into another one a little bit more on the I'm not going to call this one straight developer one, but it sort of feels like that. So there's something called Gemini Spark, and this is a autonomous personal agent. It's not about creating agents inside of Vertex. This is a self-contained agent that Google would be providing. This is basically a 24/7 personal assistant, personal agent running on Gemini 3.5, but it's capable of doing things on your behalf, even when your device is off. So the way I kind of thought about this when I first heard it is this is sort of like a cross section of OpenClaw with the concept of it not being on device, which kind of leads me to think about this is like Microsoft Copilot Cowork, but Cowork is just for Microsoft M365 Graph components. But this is now notion of Cowork with Claw brought to your Google environment where it can actually do things on your behalf. That could be things like, hey, I need to act on these 5 emails. It's just going to go do it. Whether or not you want that or feel comfortable with that, it's a wholly different topic. So this is a very personalized agent that will work on your behalf. And again, it could do that autonomously. It could do it when your device is off. So it's not tied into your physical workstation. This is only going to be pushed out at least first to the Google AI Ultra subscribers. And it's supposed to be being rolled out next week. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. I think they're going to try to work out the bugs maybe with the Ultra subscribers, and we'll see where that goes afterwards. And like I said, again, I am a subscriber to Gemini, so we'll if it makes it down to that mark, I do have a couple of Gmail accounts that I have for like literally for the AI files. Maybe Shadab, we could try it out and see how maybe it could automatically respond to folks that email us if we're comfortable with it.
Yeah. Yes, I think that makes sense. These things are becoming very popular based on like lobster inspired
Yeah.
ever since that came out, right? Claw Pilot or whatever. Anti-Gravity 2.0, the agent first developer platform. So this is a full agent orchestration environment with sub-agents, hooks, asynchronous task management, and multi-agent teamwork. Basically, all that it does is it helps you do the multi-die engineering into hours. It includes a desktop app, it's a CLI, SDK, enterprise integration, all within the Google Cloud. So I think it's their entire agentic development platform. Only thing I wonder is anti-gravity. That name is actually a bit catchy, Jamie. Although I don't know why this name was taken, but I like the name. It's a bit catchy actually to
It,
differentiate because there are so many different AI platforms, and sometimes it's confusing. Everything sounds like AI studio, AI platform. It's good to differentiate a little bit.
yeah, I think the name is cool. It just doesn't remind me of anything have to do with agents. Maybe that's why they did it.
Correct.
Speaking of those AI names, so AI Studio, that's getting an upgrade, as Google put it. So it's going to be able to develop Android apps directly via prompting and push directly out to the Play console. Just to remind people, Google owns the Android platform, or at least they're the ones that develop it, and obviously they have phones. So it's not surprising that they're going to have deep integration with the Android platform. They also have something that's coming out, which is called Managed Agents. This is going to be able to do a single API call, which will provision a remote Linux environment where the agent can plan, make tool calls, execute code, and browse the web autonomously for you. So again, these are just these iterations that are happening within these agent platforms.
Yeah, and there was another
We could go
announcement.
on and on. There's so many different.
Yeah, the IO was like tons of announcements, Gemini for science and creative tools in Flow and Pix and music. But I think we covered most of the main announcements this week, Jamie.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll wrap it up with a quick AI at work. This past week, we had this thought working with, and again, this says Microsoft internal. It's what I'm telling you here is not nothing that's like going to break code secrets, but this applies to everybody. You're meeting with a customer. You want to track the things that you're talking about in that meeting, and you want something that will automatically create what I'm going to call work artifacts. Those things could be like, hey, create an executive recap, create a industry trends off of this, create a solution map off of that information, create potentially a spec that I could bring into something like Codex to build the application proof of concept on. So the thought here, and this is again real life work that I literally vibe coded or context engineered in 3 hours and had a working prototype that I'm using. But the idea here is you work in a meeting with a customer. The application can record the I'm going to call it the like key concepts, pain points, KPIs that they want to hit, challenges, or what's the desired outcomes. I kind of call these like the electronic sticky notes, right? Think about every one of us has probably been in a meeting room, and when we try to brainstorm around the room, you put the sticky notes up on the wall. Take those virtual sticky notes, and then there's agents. There's actually 11 agents that I constructed that takes all that information and then builds artifacts off of that. And like I said, it'll build 7 artifacts. The last agent is actually the consolidator. Actually, there's 2. 10 and 11 are the important ones. 10 is the consolidator. It brings all the information together. And then the last agent actually is a checker. And then that then generates the output. And the most important piece, in my opinion, of this, at least for me, is in my role as a solution engineer, I want to take the things that I heard and bring it into um, a solution spec, literally something that I can just bring right into Codex or Visual Studio Code connected into GitHub Copilot and say, go build this proof of concept off of the spec. it's literally what I built. So this is, again, I can't go in and actually show the demo and everything, but that is in essence what it is. So again, from thought to concept, I built the spec about the concept and then had it generate this whole app. And like I said, in 3 hours, I had something that was, and I think I have this slide. So in 3 hours, it built the whole application, which is built in Next.js, React, Tailwind. It actually is connected to GPT 5.4 to do the lifting on the agents. I'm using Postgres to store all the information. It's wrapped into an Azure Container app. It's using managed identity as a security. And I actually had the GitHub Copilot actually build the whole thing as a deployable bicep harness or bicep script as the deployment method. So here's, again, it's a real life scenario of there was an opportunity that I saw. By the way, the other thing that I built into this is the ability for you to upload a transcript of the meeting. So basically using something like Teams and do a recording. You can do the same thing if you're using Zoom, but you take the transcript and you throw it into the tool and it actually automatically creates all of those quote unquote virtual sticky notes that the agents will go against. So that's
give this guy a
raise. Started out with some booze and now I got some.
Give this guy a raise. Look, this is a great example of, and I totally agree with you, Jamie. This is a very exciting thing. It is a common problem at hand, actually. So this really helps and get something actionable. I think that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, otherwise it's like a death by meeting kind of scenario, but the meetings can actually be now turned into something actionable and outcome oriented. So great work there.
Cool, thanks. And with that, I think we're at a wrap for today. Went a little bit over our normal time, but a lot of good information today.
Yeah, take a little larger pill this week, but hopefully it will help everybody and enjoy the long weekend.
Yes, enjoy it.
Bye, everyone.